There are three branches of government in the United States: legislative, executive, and judicial. The first branch of the government is the legislative branch, and it is described in Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. The legislative branch is responsible for making laws, passing bills, coining money, collecting taxes, and declaring war. There are two parts to the legislative branch: the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives consists of 425 members. Each state gets several representatives depending on the population. To become a member of the House of Representatives, one must be at least 25, have lived in the U.S. for 7 years, live in the state they will represent, and be elected by the people. The House has special powers which are not shared by the Senate. Only the House can make tax laws and spending laws, and only the House can impeach the president or other government officials. If there is no majority vote in the Electoral College for one of the presidential candidates, the House is the one that casts the deciding vote. Congressmen serve 2-year terms and are up for re-election every even year. The House of Representatives is led by the Speaker of the House, who is elected by the House itself. The Senate is made up of 100 members. Each state gets 2 senators regardless of the state's population. To run for the Senate, a person must be at least 30 years old, lived in the U.S. for 9 years, and live in the state that they will represent. The Senate has the power to approve presidential appointments and treaties, and when the House decides to impeach a government official, it's the Senate that tries them. The senators serve 6-year terms and are re-elected every even year. The second branch of the government is the executive branch, and it is talked about in Article 2 of the Constitution. The leaders of this branch of government are the President and the Vice President. They are responsible for enforcing the laws made by the Congress. Not everyone can run for president, and there are some requirements to become one. A person running for president must be at least 35 years old, a natural-born citizen of the United States, and have at least lived in the United States for 14 years. The president can only be in office for 4 years and is limited to 2 terms. The Electoral College is a set of people, or electors, that are selected to elect a candidate for the presidential office. When the people cast their vote, they are not directly voting for the president, but they are voting for which electors represent their state. The Electoral College is made up of 538 electors, and a majority of 270 electoral votes is required to win the presidency. The number of electors per state is determined by the population. The more people a state has, the more electors they have. Also, each state has at least 2 electors, because the senators are also electors. The president has multiple powers. The president represents the United States globally. He can negotiate and sign treaties with foreign countries, but they need to be supported by 2/3 of the Senate. The president commands the military and nominates members for the Supreme Court and the cabinet. The cabinet is a part of the executive branch, and it consists of the heads of the 15 executive departments, but it also serves as a group of advisors to the president. The cabinet members are also the president's successors. If the president is impeached, resigns, or passes away, the vice president becomes the president, and after that, the Speaker of the House. There are 15 executive departments. Some examples of them are the Department of the Treasury, which manages federal finances by collecting taxes and paying bills; the Department of Defense, which provides the military forces needed to fight wars and protect the country; the Department of Commerce, and it promotes economic growth and job creation. Finally, the third branch of the U.S. government is the judicial branch, and it is talked about in Article 3 of the Constitution. This branch is made up of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, and district courts. These courts interpret the laws of the nation. The president nominates Supreme Court members, as well as federal courts of appeals and district court judges. The highest court is the Supreme Court, which settles disputes among states, hears appeals from state and federal courts, and determines if federal laws are constitutional. There are 9 justices in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court justices are appointed for life, unless they are impeached. There are 13 appellate courts below the U.S. Supreme Court, and they are called the U.S. Courts of Appeals. The appellate court's task is to determine whether or not the law was applied correctly in the trial court. Courts of appeals consist of 3 judges and do not use a jury. There are 94 district courts in the U.S., and they resolve disputes by determining the facts and applying legal principles to decide who is right.